Hi everyone and welcome to Spill the Beans. My name is Duncan Goldie. My guest this week is Mark Gooding. Mark is the Chief Science and Technology Officer with Mirada Medical. Mirada are a pretty big player within the medical imaging or medical engineering field. They're on about 2,000 sites, as Mark will highlight for you in the UK. They're really sort of using quite some innovative technologies, and as Mark will describe to you, some quite cool technologies as well, particularly within AI, to increase their offering to I suppose clinicians and in essence patients as well, particularly within radiology, and the AI within radiology isn't just an aspect of diagnosis at the moment, which a lot of other businesses are involved in. It's also in that kind of identification and treatment as well. So it was really interesting chat, really interesting to sort of hear from Mark, and great to chat to him. So hope you enjoy it and take it away. Okay, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me on this lovely sunny day. How's everything with you? Whereabouts in the world are you right now?
So I'm based in Oxford in the UK. Beautiful city. I came here as a student, and predictably somebody starts calling me. Yeah, so I came here as a student, and it's such a nice place. I mean,
yeah, it's a lovely
really.
part of the world. Exactly, not a bad place to be self-isolating. So what's the sort of working from home setup for you? Are you cramped in a corner like me, or you look like you've got a pretty good setup there?
Well, I'm cramped in a pretty small room. You probably see most of the room from the shot. I used to be a room where we kept a drum kit for one of my kids. Nice. So as soon as we started isolating, I spent a week lying in bed with a laptop on my lap, and ended up with a really bad back, and thought, I've got to do something about this.
I know it's good on paper, isn't it? But when you actually have to do it, you're like, no, my neck's not going to survive this, I don't think.
Yeah, so I went into the office in dead of night and took all of my equipment. So I've got 3 monitors set up, and
perfect. Yeah, I've done something very similar as well. Yeah, I went in there and got my fiance a nice chair and stole some screens and everything like that. So, but why not, right? They're not being used.
Picking up the office chair was definitely the best thing to do.
Yeah, it's a bit of a savior, isn't it? Yeah. I say that, but I'm sat on a wicker chair at the moment, and that's that's why these things can only go on for about 20 minutes. Otherwise, I start to seize up a little bit. Great. Well, obviously, I came across Mirada Medical and thought, it was a really, really interesting business and lots going on there. So, I mean, tell us a little bit more about, I suppose, your background and what led you into the role that you're in now with Mirada.
Yeah, sure. So I did my doctorate at the research group in Oxford that Mirada was spun out of. I was actually joining that research group when Mirada was being spun out, or was actually technically it was a merger of 2 of the spin-outs from that group. But I was just joining at the point that Mirada was formed the first time around. I kind of watched this startup grow. Then it got bought and ended up part of Siemens healthcare, really. And I sort of stuck around in academia doing medical imaging research, come from an engineering background. But my heart really wasn't in academia, in the sense that while I love doing research and I love coming up with new things, I want to see those new things being used, not written up in a paper for nobody to consider. It's great when your citations go up, but they're not using your stuff, they're just referring to it. And then, so I was looking, after doing a couple of postdocs, I was looking for sort of more commercial roles, and the product manager for the Mirada brand within Siemens was in the process of arranging a management buyout of the sort of technology, really. It was an asset purchase rather than a sort of real management buyout. And so Mirada was becoming an independent company again. I knew a few of the people because they'd been around in the research group. So I joined Mirada as about the 7th employee.
Perfect. So now you're sitting at about, is it 80 odd employees you have now?
Yeah, I think we're currently around 80. We've been growing quite rapidly in the past year since getting another investment round. So it's keeping track of the number of people is more challenging.
Exactly. Get a new internal call list every day. Yeah. So in terms of the, I suppose what Mirada does, and for anyone who hasn't heard about it and the kind of issues that you're trying to solve, can you give us kind of a bit of an overview of that?
So Mirada really is all about helping doctors use images to treat cancer as effectively as possible. So within healthcare, there's a lot of imaging goes on. People have heard of MRI, may have heard of CT scans, etc. There's another modality which maybe people are less familiar with called PET scanning, positron emission tomography, where somebody will take a radioactive tracer as a sort of ingest it or get it injected, and then the radiation coming out of them gets scanned. But those tracers are designed to sort of highlight certain things. So the most common one is based on glucose, and tumors go to take up a lot of glucose. They're very active in growing. So if you look at a PET scan, you see all these glowing spots. So Mirada's real technology, particularly from sort of the early days, was around fusing different images together so that you could look at a PET scan, which shows you where activity is in a body, and a CT scan, which shows you the anatomy of the person. And you fuse those together, and then you can tell where the cancer is and how active it is. So that was our sort of background technology. But being sort of specialists in imaging, we've then applied that in radiotherapy to help with the treatment of cancer, and in another field called interventional oncology, which is sort of almost the fusion between the diagnostic imaging, the radiation therapy, and surgery, sort of where those all intersect.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it seems like quite a malleable platform that you've got there. In terms of the stages that it's come through, I mean, it seems like, you've been in one way or another aware or involved with Mirada for quite some time. How have you seen the kind of technology that you're using to be able to, integrate with the medical industry develop over the past however long it's been?
I think coming out of the sort of university startups are really often focused on cool technology, and the registration, this image fusion technology that we had, really great stuff. It's still, after 20 years or so, it's fantastic in its performance compared to our competitors. But you end up with a company which is really focused on, hey, look at this cool technology we've got. Maybe you should buy it because it's a cool technology. And I think as a company, certainly going through that acquisition process and then coming back out and in its current form, we've really matured in outlook. And actually, in terms of selling things, you're selling to customers. You're trying to solve a problem for them. And well, I imagine a lot of your viewers of your podcast, being technology people, do go out and buy technology for the sake of buying technology. But the wider population want to buy products that solve a problem for them or do something new for them, and they're not interested in the underlying technology. They're interested in the clinical. Our customers are interested in the clinical use of that technology. So I think that's really where I've seen the platforms develop, and our approach just across the board really is to change from being a technology company to being a healthcare solution provider who just happens to have a load of Oxford PhD people employed on the company.
It's not a bad way to start, is it?
Yeah.
Great. So, I mean, in terms of the AI aspect of Mirada, you mentioned obviously how the platform can pick these abnormalities up in radiology scans. How is that kind of, I suppose, changing? Is that a separate product, or is that something that you've been doing since the inception?
No, I mean it really probably reflects what I was just saying about how our mindset has changed from doing technology to solving problems. So in radiotherapy treatment planning, the doctor has to draw around the tumor on a CT scan to help the treatment planning machine know how to calculate where to send the radiation to kill the tumor. They also have to draw around all of the normal anatomy that might be at risk of radiation, because they want to maximize the radiation to the tumor to kill it. And obviously they want to minimize the radiation to everything that you want to keep, like your heart, for instance. So, I mean, there's been technology on the market for best part of a decade to try and assist doctors doing this, called auto-contouring software. And historically, that's been based on registration. So that fusion technology that Mirada had already had, and us, along with a number of other vendors, all had a way of, you take a patient that you've drawn around before, you align them to a different patient, and copy the contours across. Now, you know, we look pretty similar. You know, we've both got eyes, nose, mouth, etc. But people can tell us apart because there's differences in shape. And whilst our registration technology tries to account for those differences in shape, you can only do so much. Underlying that technology is an assumption that you're looking at the same thing, but we're different people. It's not the same thing. So we're within my group, so I'm leading the research team at Mirada. We got some funding, a research grant, to look at whether we could do this on a much bigger scale. If we, rather than taking 10 patients or 20 patients from a hospital as these sort of prior examples, if we took, say, 5,000, if we built a network across the entire UK or across Europe of hospitals contributing previous cases, maybe we could find your long-lost twin brother. And then we'd get a much better result. So we were going down that path and really very much focused on what can we do to get a better result, not what technology should we use. We kind of assumed we had the technology. And we got a year and a half into this grant and actually concluded that whilst in theory the idea of finding your long lost twin brothers, would make it work. It would make we proved that we could get better results if we could do it. Actually finding somebody who's similar by looking at their internal anatomy is kind of a bit tricky. So there we were like, well, the published stuff that we've looked at in the literature doesn't work. What new things can we bring in to try and solve this problem? So we started looking to machine learning and AI. Gave a few examples ago, using deep learning, and then immediately binned the sort of previous decade of work on this area and went, you know what, this different approach helps us solve the problem. And really very much focused on then, deep learning's cool. It's nice that we get to use deep learning and AI. But, if we'd found an old school technique that would have been that much better, we'd have used that. And really, therefore, it's kind of like deep learning was a means to an end. And then within a fairly short space of time, we come up with a solution which sort of blew the old techniques out of the water in terms of performance. From there, I probably spent sort of 3 months or so jumping up and down in front of all our product management teams and our salespeople saying, look at this, this is this is the solution we've been looking for. And so actually then we put a lot of effort into getting that to market as quickly as possible. I think for me it was quite satisfying. Within the radiotherapy world, we were the first of the vendors to come to market, get CE mark and FDA clearance for a product based on deep learning in that domain. So it was a nice achievement on the technology side.
Yeah, that's a pretty satisfying one there.
But really, the reason we could do that was because we were focusing on the clinical use as opposed to just on technology.
Yeah, exactly. And so in terms of the application of how this has been, kind of rolled out, what stage is, I suppose, this section of Mirada up to? Is it still sort of fairly greenfield, or is it very well established and, integrated across the whole NHS? I mean, whereabouts are you now?
I think in different parts of the sort of healthcare market, we're at different stages. On the diagnostic imaging side, we're very much an established player. Actually, we sell a lot of that technology through other vendors. So the larger companies that people will have heard of. And actually, we don't need to do much in the way of direct sales because our sort of product is an accepted solution across the market. So half of the PET-CT images in the UK, at least half, get read on our Mirada's software.
Wow.
And that product is installed in potentially sort of 2,000 sites worldwide. On the radiotherapy side, I think we're a smaller player. In a way, we've got a technology product advantage going forward. And that's where we were, probably 12 months ago or so, got further investment to grow the company and actually to really focus on delivering that new product, that DLC expert, to the market. So that's been an exciting sort of change. You might think selling into healthcare is just selling into healthcare, but actually different departments don't talk to each other. The fact that we're in one hospital for nuclear medicine and diagnostic imaging, the radiotherapy department will be doing their own thing, and they've never heard of us.
That can be frustrating, I imagine.
It is, but I mean, it's also an exciting sort of change. I mean, bringing something based on AI actually is a slightly disruptive technology as well, and so that brings a whole load of new challenges. If it's just the same as everybody else's, you don't have to explain how it works to anyone. They go, okay, you've got a thing that I've seen before. Whereas this is like this is new, and they're like, well, okay, is it going to launch a nuclear missile strike against Russia? Or, am I going to be? Is this Terminator? Exactly. Actually explaining to people how the technology works and really trying to help build a market for something that they haven't seen before. It's a different sale value proposition. It's a different sales pitch, and I think that for somebody like me, I find that fascinating. It's just like trying to do the different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Innovation and disruption. And I mean, what's the kind of general? I mean, you mentioned there, obviously, people, once they're educated enough, seem to be open to adopting it. Do you think that's a kind of theme in the industry as a whole? I mean, are you coming across many other businesses who are using AI to, at the same kind of level that you are, particularly within this industry? Or would you say that you're kind of, going on a bit uncharted territory?
I think it's slightly different. A lot of the AI work in healthcare is focused on diagnosis. And in diagnosis, you're kind of making a call about the state of a patient in a way that the doctor can't. And the way that then they might determine if somebody's got cancer or not is to then go and do a biopsy. So whereas what we're doing is kind of using AI as a way to improve the efficiency of what the doctor wants to do anyway. So they're going to be drawing these contours. So the fact that the computer draws it for them, they can then, I mean, if they want, they can edit what it's drawn, and they can, they can see what it's doing. Whereas on the diagnosis side, I think they actually have a greater challenge. I think the challenge for us in the field we are is trying to separate out the two, because all of the regulators, etc., have come at it from the diagnostic point of view and expect certain performance demonstrations, etc., based on what they know of doing diagnostic sort of computer-aided detection. Whereas, so we had a slight challenge there. Actually, there's some pretty smart guys at the FDA who really understand this technology, so we could have a pretty good conversation and work through it with them fairly easily. But then you have the same conversations when you get to medical people, because what they're reading in the medical journals about AI doesn't necessarily apply to their field. And I think that's where the education on the clinical side maybe needs to sort of head, is they're reading about AI in a very narrow context. But actually AI is a much, much broader technology. It's the way you apply it can be much broader. So some of the sort of work I've been doing, where I've been giving talks at conferences, etc., it's really been trying to educate people that AI it's a tool. It's not this new magic that they're reading about, or maybe the press come across as saying, AI is going to replace all the doctors. It's not going to replace all the doctors. It's not general AI. It's not that singularity Terminator scenario. It is a tool to get a job done.
I mean, I suppose I think the message that I've definitely seen, having spoken to quite a few different businesses that are implementing newer technologies, is just alleviating some of the burden on particularly on the diagnostic side, like you said, but also just in the implementation of technology and how it can improve efficiency, and ultimately, like you say, it's a healthcare product, and it has a job to do, which is improve the standard of care.
Yeah.
And I think as long as that's the message the whole time, then what's the problem with? I think everyone would want to spend less time in hospital, less time being diagnosed, less time not knowing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously with this, the treatment side of things as well is just a step in the right direction. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. If anyone does have sort of further questions for you and wants to find out a little bit more about, Mirada and, particularly the new kind of ventures that you've got going on, what would be the best way for them to get in contact?
Oh, that's a really good question. People are welcome to follow me on Twitter, at SciChief, I think, because Chief Sci was gone. On LinkedIn, I tend not to connect to people that I haven't met in person. Just otherwise, I would be connecting to too many people. I like to actually connect with the people I've already connected with. But I'm certainly, as you did, I'm quite willing to respond to messages on LinkedIn, and then contacting us through the Mirada website is a great way to find out about Mirada. And as a smallish company, actually we're quite agile in responding to people, so you won't get lost in a massive queue of 2-week turnaround or anything.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'll put a link to the Mirada website on the summary of this video as well, so people can always have a bit of a look. But look, for the time being, I'll let you get on with the important work that you're doing. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to chat with me. Really, really interesting work that you're doing, and it's obviously solving some really key issues for the people that need it the most. So thank you very much for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers. It's been fun.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
And that's it for us this week then, guys. Thanks very much to Mark for taking the time to chat with us. Really interesting to hear from one of the really successful players in digital health as to how they're kind of using the changes in technology to innovate and adapt and expand their service offering as well. So there's obviously lots more to hear about from Mirada and from Mark. So if you are interested in hearing more, then definitely feel free to get in touch with him via the Mirada website, which I've just put a link for that in the description. Apart from that, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Spilling the Beans Digital Health Podcast is aimed at members of the digital health community globally, with guests from the United Kingdom, Australia and the United States. The podcast is available through all major podcast distributors as well as on YouTube. The show is sponsored by Woodrow Mercer Technology and Woodrow Mercer Digital Health.